Chapter 102, Confessions, Antony's POV. As soon as Marcus shut his door behind them, Antony snapped at his lover. "What the fuck was that?" Marcus shrugged, smiling so that his cheeks dimpled. "Sorry, Annie. You're just too much fun to tease. You get so flustered." "You weren't teasing me!" At the memory of Hanyu's flinches and woebegone expression, indignation clawed through Antony's body. He realized he was clenching his fist and jaw. "You need to leave Hanyu alone." "Darling," Marcus said patiently, "Hanyu's a human, a pet. Teasing him is teasing you. If you made disparaging comments about one of Thad's precious fish, it wouldn't be because you were trying to rile up the fish." "Hanyu is not a fish!" Fuck, that was a stupid sentence. "You are upsetting him on purpose. You wouldn't bother with that if you didn't want to make him uncomfortable." Marcus heaved a sigh. "I don't know why you're so sensitive all of a sudden." "I'm not the one who's acting different." That was at least partially a lie, and Antony knew it, but still. "You've never tormented any of my other offerings like this." "You never got protective of one of them like this," Marcus shot back. "You're mooning after this stupid, clumsy child like a damn fool." "Stop it!" Antony whirled on him, jabbing one finger into his lover's broad chest, so choked with sudden fury he could barely speak. "Don't talk about him like that. No more insults, no more side comments, nothing. I don't want to hear another word of it. He's not stupid, or a child, or a pet. He's important to me, and I need you to respect that." Marcus stared down at him with such blank astonishment that it drained away Antony's anger. Of course, why should he assume that his lover would understand? Antony had spoken just as dismissively about humans for hundreds of years. He needed to express himself clearly. He needed to be honest. That was the only way forward. He reached out and clasped one of Marcus's hands in both of his. It was big and rough with ancient calluses, and it fit his palms with such a perfect, familiar heft. He'd yearned to hold this hand as a silly princeling. It was the hand that had put him together again, that had held him and given him pleasure and pain according to each moment's need, that had made him feel safe and whole like nothing else in the world could do anymore. Marcus was his past. Whatever struggles were complicating their present, he was his future as well. Antony just needed to make him understand. "I love you, Marcus," he said softly, astounded all over again by how true it was, by the intensity of what he felt for this strong, wild, complicated man. "And I need you to know that I have feelings for Hanyu, too." He tensed, expecting, what, laughter? An explosion of rage? Either seemed likely, but instead, Marcus was quiet. He kept his hand in Antony's, and his big, dark eyes stayed fixed on Antony's face. He neither smiled nor frowned. His head tilted a little to one side, thoughtful. "Really?" he asked, sounding genuinely curious. Antony nodded, his mind still buzzing with wariness. "Yes, really." Twice now he'd said it aloud. Wasn't that supposed to make the thought less momentous, less terrifying? It didn't seem to be helping in this case. His stomach churned miserably as he once again faced the magnitude of what he'd let happen. "What kind of feelings?" Marcus's tone stayed calm, cautious. "None of that courtly vagueness right now, darling. I need clarity." "Right, of course." Antony swallowed hard. This was going to be a problem. "I don't know exactly," he admitted. "It's all so new. Well, not really new. I can see now that it's been building for a long time." "And all the times I asked you about him and you said I had no reason to be jealous?" There it was, the question Antony had dreaded, but known he wouldn't be able to avoid. "I'm sorry," he pleaded. "I didn't mean to lie. I was so mixed up I really didn't see what was happening." "Half the ship noticed that you were spending all your time with your offering, and you expect me to believe you didn't?" Marcus still didn't sound angry, but his brows were furrowed. Disappointed. "Do you know how many people asked me what was going on between you and your new attendant? And every time I had to say that it was nothing. Because that's what you told me. You made me lie for you, Annie. I didn't mean to, Antony insisted. And it's not a lie. Hanyu and I, we're not in any kind of relationship. Nothing romantic or even just sexual. Marcus raised a brow. Really? Of course not. So it's true. There's nothing for you to be jealous of. Anyhow, you never get jealous when I sleep with anyone else. It's not about the sex, Annie. Marcus shook his head and pulled his hand from Antony's grip. You're using words like romantic and relationship. You never talk like that about your dalliances with the rest of our kind, but you want to talk seriously about this human? This one out of all of them? Why him? It was such a confusing, overwhelming question, even though the answer felt perfectly obvious. After all, they were talking about Hanyu. Couldn't Marcus see for himself why Antony would love the man? Couldn't everyone? He's kind, was the first faltering thing he managed to say. Not just in how he acts, exactly. Sometimes he's a little clumsy with people's feelings, in fact. Not because he doesn't care, but just because he gets carried away. But he's kind in how he sees. He finds something interesting and admirable in everyone. He really listens when someone talks, and he's so eager to love everybody. It makes me want to climb into his head and see through his eyes so I can get the knack of it. I think it would be wonderful to be so aware of the good in everyone. Well, Hanyu never had much good to say about Marcus himself, but that wasn't exactly what Antony wanted to talk about right now. He found himself unexpectedly eager to explain, to make Marcus see the wonder of this glorious man who'd fallen into their lives, to help him appreciate Hanyu as he deserved. He continued, and he's so completely himself, even after everything the temple did to try to make him like the rest. He can't hide his emotions. He cries about everything, good or bad. He's stubborn and a little bossy sometimes when he's worried about someone. He loves bright, sparkly things and animals and learning. He wants to see everything in the world and ask 1,000 questions about it all. He snores and he can't play music. All this after a whole lifetime of those priests trying to make him shut up and blend in with the rest. It's a miracle. He's a miracle. Antony stopped himself, suddenly realizing how much he just gushed over the man. Damn, he hadn't even realized he thought half of that until he heard it rushing out of his mouth. But it was all true. All that and more. There were infinite reasons to fall for Hanyu, and to anyone listening, himself included, it would seem undeniable that that was exactly what Antony had done. Marcus was staring down at him, eyes round with surprise. Oh, you're really in love, aren't you? Antony shrugged, certain that he would be blushing furiously if he had the capacity. I don't know. I haven't known him all that long, but he matters to me, yes. I see. They stood in silence for a long moment. Antony could almost hear the crackling as Marcus's mind worked. He tried to keep quiet and allow his lover to absorb the barrel of information he'd just dumped on him. All right, Marcus said at last. You have another partner, and it's a human. I see. He was taking all this much more calmly than Antony had anticipated, but the words still sent a shock through him. No, Antony squawked. As I said, we're not in any kind of relationship. But you want to be. Do I? Hanyu wanted to spend ridiculous amounts of time with Hanyu, listening to his clever, charitable talk and painting him and fixing his hair. He wanted to sleep in Hanyu's arms. He wanted to protect him and see his smile all the time. He had all that already. Wasn't it enough? Perhaps. Perhaps not. He wanted to kiss Hanyu. He wanted to kiss every inch of every lanky limb and learn how Hanyu's skin tasted, not just his blood. He wanted to take that beautiful man to pieces with pleasure and make him beg for more. He wanted to bury his face in the golden tumble of his hair and take in his scent with every breath. He wanted to lavish Hanyu with compliments and endearments until the word stupid never even crossed his mind, let alone his lips. He wanted to be the person Hanyu turned to for comfort and support and safety. He wanted to hold his hand. But all that came with a price. Antony knew in terrible detail what loving Hanyu would cost him, and he couldn't make any rash decisions. He had to be positive if he decided someday, in the future, when they'd had more time together, that he was willing to pay. "I don't know," he growled, helpless. "I'm not planning anything right now. Anyhow, I would never take another partner without discussing it with you first." Marcus raised his brow. "And here we are, discussing it." "No," Antony repeated, even more flustered. I just need you to be nicer to him, all right? That's all I'm asking right now." His lover stared down at him for another agonizingly long moment, and Antony squirmed. He'd known Marcus would take this hard. It would be difficult enough to accept Antony going stupid and swooning over someone else after all these centuries, but for that person to be someone they had fought over so many times already, and a human no less, a short-lived firework of a being who would leave Antony destroyed again after Marcus had already put up with his overwhelming despair twice. Antony was still fretting when Marcus took a deep, unnecessary breath and smiled. "All right, Annie," he chuckled, a little disbelievingly, and shook his head. "If that's how it is, that's how it is." Oh, thank fuck. The tension left Antony's body in such a rush, he thought he might collapse in a puddle on the floor. Marcus went on. "I don't want you to feel trapped between two lovers who hate each other. I'll behave. I'll be the soul of charm. Just wait, he'll be eating out of my hand in no time." The thought of Asao weeping at his feet because he wouldn't beat him, covered in bruises and bandages, flashed across Antony's mind. Hanyu might not be as eager to make friends as Marcus assumed, but if anyone could win him over, it was Marcus, and if anyone could forgive someone for their sins and enthusiastically embrace their honest efforts to improve, it was Hanyu. After all, he likes me. "Thank you," Antony exhaled, sagging against his lover's broad chest and reveling in the feeling of Marcus's arms coming up to cradle him close. "I knew you would understand. Thank you for being so wonderful about this." "Of course, Annie." Marcus pressed a kiss to the top of his head, and Antony felt himself melting. "If he's important to you, he's important to me. I promise I'll dedicate myself wholeheartedly to making things right between me and Hanyu." Joy crashed over Antony in an overwhelming wave. He hadn't realized until now how much he'd let Theo and Hanyu's distaste for Marcus poison his own mind. He had, he now understood, started to be afraid that his lover was never going to evolve. He'd feared that Marcus would go on killing his attendants and tormenting Hanyu, and that he would lose him because of it. "I knew it. I knew he was still like this deep down. They were all wrong, and I was right. They never knew him like I do. I just had to get Asao away from him and let him work out his frustrations. He just needed a little time. He's still my love, my rock." Mute with gratitude, Antony lifted his face for a kiss. Marcus met him halfway, their mouths coming together with the ease of long habit, and Antony relaxed into the familiar teasing dance of their lips and tongues. Marcus's kisses were unusually sweet, his hands on Antony's body unusually tender, and Antony was beginning to think that their love-making would be unusually wonderful when they were interrupted by a knock on the door. Marcus groaned softly and pulled back, rolling his eyes, but still smiling. "Never fails," he whispered, then, more loudly, "Who is it?" "Is Antony in there?" Theodore's voice, unmistakable despite the uncharacteristically frantic edge. Antony immediately forgot all about kissing and rushed for the door. "Hanyu, something's happened to him." "What's wrong?" he snapped as soon as the door was open. Theo stood alone, her eyes wide and wild. She reached out and grabbed his shoulders, and Antony tried to brace himself for the worst. "Hiseo can see the island in the spyglass," she said raggedly. "Titus's ship is there."